Every time a hacker finds a hole in your software, your browser, your operating system, your bank's website, there's one database that's supposed to catch it. One system that tells every security team on the planet, hey, this is broken, here's how bad it is, here's what to do. That system is called the National Vulnerability Database. It's run by NIST, the same government agency that sets the standards for, well, everything. Weights and measures, encryption, time itself. And last week, NIST quietly announced, we can't keep up anymore. They're not shutting it down. It's worse than that. They're just stopping, letting thousands of vulnerabilities pile up with no analysis, no severity score, no guidance. Just a name and a number sitting in a queue that nobody's ever going to get to. This is the story of how the world's most important security database broke, and what happens now that nobody's watching the door. Okay, let's back up. If you've never heard of the NVD, that's kind of the point. It's supposed to work invisibly. Here's how cybersecurity works in practice. A researcher finds a bug. Say, a way to execute code on someone's machine through a crafted email attachment. They report it. It gets assigned a CVE number. That stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. Think of it like a serial number for bugs. But a CVE number alone doesn't tell you much. It's like getting a police report that says, crime happened, but doesn't tell you if it was jaywalking or armed robbery. That's where NIST comes in. Their National Vulnerability Database takes every CVE and enriches it. They analyze the bug, assign it a CVSS score, that's the severity rating from 0 to 10, they tag which products are affected, and they link to patches and advisories. This enrichment is what makes the CVE system actually useful. Without it, security teams are flying blind. Every vulnerability scanner you've ever used, Nessus, Qualys, Rapid7, they all pull from the NVD. Every enterprise patch management system checks those CVSS scores to decide what gets fixed first. Your company's security posture? Built on this data. The NVD isn't just important. For most organizations, it's the only source of truth. So what happened? Math happened. Between 2020 and 2025, CVE submissions surged 263%. In 2025 alone, NIST enriched over 42,000 vulnerabilities, 45% more than any previous year, and it still wasn't enough. Why the explosion? A few reasons. First, there are just more things to hack. Every IoT device, every SaaS platform, every NPM package, every Kubernetes plugin, they all have bugs, and they all need CVEs. Second, AI is finding vulnerabilities faster than humans ever could. Remember Project Glasswing from last week? AI systems that can find 0 days in every major operating system? Yeah. Those same tools are flooding the CVE pipeline with discoveries. Third, more CVE numbering authorities, the organizations authorized to issue CVE numbers, are active now. The system was designed for maybe a few thousand entries a year. It's getting tens of thousands. NIST tried to keep up. They hired contractors. They streamlined processes. They even had a crisis last year when they fell behind and had to bring in CISA to help triage the backlog. But the math just doesn't work. You can't scale a human review process at 263% growth rates, not with government budgets, not with government hiring timelines. On April 15th, NIST posted a notice that most people completely missed. Here's what it says, in plain English. Going forward, NIST will only enrich CVEs that meet one of 3 criteria. 1. The vulnerability is in CISA's Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog. That's the actively being used by hackers right now list. 2. The vulnerability affects federal government software. 3. The vulnerability falls under critical infrastructure categories defined by Executive Order 14028. Everything else? It goes into a queue that NIST has officially categorized as not scheduled. And here's the part that really stings. All unenriched CVEs submitted before March 1st, 2026, they've been moved to not scheduled too, retroactively. Thousands of vulnerabilities that security teams were waiting on, just abandoned. Let me say that again. The US government looked at thousands of known software vulnerabilities and said, we're not going to tell you how bad these are. Figure it out yourself. Okay, you might be thinking, so NIST can't keep up. Other people can fill the gap, right? In theory, yes. In practice, this is a disaster. Here's the thing about the NVD. It's not just a nice to have. It's baked into compliance frameworks. PCI DSS, which governs credit card security, references CVSS scores from the NVD. HIPAA security assessments use NVD data. FedRAMP, SOC 2, ISO 27001, all of them assume the NVD exists and is comprehensive. When a CISO goes to their board and says, we patched all critical vulnerabilities this quarter, they mean, We patched everything the NVD told us was critical. If the NVD stops scoring vulnerabilities, that sentence loses all meaning. And it gets worse. Automated patch management systems, the ones that decide what gets updated on your work laptop at 2 a.m., they use CVSS scores to prioritize. No score? The vulnerability drops into a gray zone. It might get patched. It might not. Nobody knows. Small and mid-sized companies are going to get hit the hardest. Big tech companies have their own security research teams. They can analyze vulnerabilities in-house. But your local hospital, your city's water treatment plant, the regional bank where your parents have their savings, they depend entirely on the NVD. There's also the timing. This is happening right as AI-powered attacks are ramping up. We just covered Mythos threatening the banking system. We just covered Project Glasswing finding 0 days in every OS. The attack surface is expanding exponentially, and the defensive infrastructure just shrank. So NIST can't do it. Who steps up? CISA is the obvious candidate. They already run the KEV catalog, the actively exploited list, and they helped bail out NIST during last year's backlog crisis. But CISA has its own funding fights in Congress, and their mandate is narrower. Protect federal systems first, everyone else second. Private companies will try to fill the gap. VulnCheck, Sneak, and others already maintain their own vulnerability databases. But here's the problem. They're not free, and they're not standardized. If Company A rates a vulnerability as critical, and Company B rates it medium, which one do you trust? The NVD was the tiebreaker. Now there isn't one. The open source community might step up too. There's already talk of community-driven enrichment, crowdsourcing the severity analysis. But crowdsourced security data has obvious trust problems. How do you verify that the random contributor scoring a vulnerability isn't the same person who planted it? The most likely outcome? Fragmentation. Instead of one source of truth, we'll have 5 or 6 competing databases with different scoring methodologies, different coverage, and different update frequencies. Security teams will have to check multiple sources, reconcile conflicting data, and make judgment calls they were never trained to make. It's like if the FDA said, we can't inspect all the food anymore, so we'll just focus on baby formula and military rations. Everything else, check Yelp reviews. This isn't just a cybersecurity story. This is a story about what happens when critical infrastructure can't scale. The CVE system was designed in 1999. It was built for a world with a few thousand vulnerabilities a year. We're now at 40,000 plus, and accelerating. And NIST isn't unique. Across the government, we're seeing the same pattern. Agencies built for a pre-internet, pre-AI world being asked to regulate and secure a post-AI world. The FAA can't keep up with drone registrations. The FCC can't keep up with spectrum allocation for IoT. The SEC can't keep up with crypto. And now NIST can't keep up with vulnerabilities. The pattern is always the same. Exponential growth meets linear bureaucracy. What's remarkable about the NIST announcement is the honesty. They didn't pretend they were keeping up. They didn't rebrand the failure. They basically said, the math doesn't work. Here's our new, smaller scope. We're sorry. In government, that kind of candor is almost unheard of, and it should terrify you. Because if NIST, the agency that literally defines standards, admits they've lost control, what does that say about everyone else? So here's where we are. The world's most important vulnerability database just told you it's only going to protect the government and critical infrastructure. Everyone else is on their own. If you're in security, now is the time to diversify your vulnerability intelligence sources. Don't rely solely on the NVD anymore. Look into CISA's KEV catalog, private feeds, and community-driven alternatives. Build internal processes for evaluating unscored CVEs. If you're a developer, this makes secure coding practices even more critical. The safety net just got a lot smaller. Bugs that would have been flagged and scored might now sit in not scheduled limbo for months or forever. And if you're just a regular person using the internet, understand this. The system that was supposed to keep your software safe just got significantly weaker. Not because of a hack, not because of budget cuts, just because the problem grew faster than anyone could solve it. The door is still there. There's just nobody watching it anymore. If this video helped you understand what's happening, hit subscribe. We break down stories like this every single day. Drop a comment if you work in security. I want to hear how this is affecting your team, and I'll see you in the next one.